Mr. Speaker, members, this amendment adds Section 12.10561 to the Education Code to prohibit charter schools from using state funding to pay off settlements from civil liability imposed on them by lawsuits or government agencies. Public accountability has to follow public dollars. Charter schools operate with public dollars. In recent years, we've seen several operators in Texas use state education funds to pay out legal settlements, often stemming from mismanagement or misconduct at the leadership level. For example, in 2020, IDEA Public Schools, one of the largest charter networks in Texas, came under fire after it was revealed that leadership used public funds.
Mr. Gervin-Hawkins.
I will yield when I finish my comments. They came under fire after it was revealed that that charter unit, that charter company, bought private jets and luxury box seats. The fallout led to several resignations, a state investigation that uncovered financial mismanagement, and a settlement agreement that included repayment of the misspent funds. This amendment simply says charter schools that operate that way cannot use state dollars to pay off their settlements. I yield.
Ms. Gervin-Hawkins, for what purpose?
Will the gentleman yield for questions?
Does the gentleman yield for questions?
Yes, ma'am.
The gentleman yields.
Representative Bryant, with all due respect, are you aware that charter schools are public schools?
Charter schools receive public money, but they are not run by our local school districts. I don't regard them as public schools.
Representative Bryant, charter schools been in existence over nearly 30 years, correct?
I'll take your word for that.
More than that.
Representative Bryant, would you agree we all want the best for children?
Would I agree?
That we all want what's best for children?
Of course, yes.
And so, have you visited any charter schools?
I don't think visiting a charter school would have much bearing on this issue, which is that they should not be able to use state funds to pay off settlements resulting from their mismanagement or violations of the law.
Well, my question, and the reason I asked that question, is that does traditional public schools use money to pay for legal?
An independent school district that is sued would have no other funds except public funds.
So if a charter school is a public school, then shouldn't they be given the same opportunities? Shouldn't we have parity here and align?
Well, it would be good to have parity where there is parity, but there is not parity here because the charter schools already operate with fewer public reporting requirements than the independent school districts. And if they're allowed to use public education funds to settle legal disputes over buying jet airplanes, which is something public schools don't do, a real public school doesn't do that, or buying boxes at the local sporting arena, which is something real public schools cannot do, they should not be able to pay off the settlements resulting from that using tax dollars.
Were you aware that no plane was ever purchased?
Am I aware that what?
There was no airplane actually purchased. Were you aware of that?
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking me.
My question is, Mr. Speaker, can we have a little order in the House?
Members, please take your conversations outside of the rails.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, because I think this conversation is so important that we begin to not try to divide our traditional public and our public charters, and that we begin to understand the alignment that public charter schools have the same accountability, and even more so than traditional public. That if a charter school violates and does not meet the academic accountability, the financial accountability, or the operational accountability, that they can be closed down.
But then, I assume that's a question, so I'll respond in this way. If they're the same as public schools, how do they buy a jet airplane? How do they buy boxes at the local sports arena? How did one charter school, which only has 1,000 students, pay its CEO $800,000, 4 times what any superintendent in Texas gets
So,
paid?
Representative Bryant, even though the questions are supposed to come from the back, Mike, I will answer your question, okay?
Well,
First of all, no plane was ever purchased. There was a request to a board, and that request was denied and never fulfilled. I want to be clear. We don't want any school that's getting public money to do malfeasance. Traditional public schools have also had some challenges with superintendents being overpaid, board members doing things that are wrong, okay? So let's get on the same page of understanding, okay, that we don't want any public school, be it traditional public or public charter schools.
Well, okay,
and Representative Bryant, I'm asking the questions here, okay? We want all of our students to get the best education, be it they in a traditional public or a public charter. Wouldn't you agree to that?
I would agree to this, that charter schools do not operate under the supervision of the school board. They are set up by private people. They call themselves nonprofit, but somehow they manage to pay enormous salaries to people for managing relatively few students relative to what happens in public schools. They don't have the same requirements that public schools have, and they nevertheless get tax dollars. They can even borrow against our foundation school program without a public vote. All of these things take place uniquely with charter schools and not with public schools. Okay, but they should not be able to use their funds to pay settlements for violating all the rules and the law and common sense by paying gargantuan salaries to CEOs, by buying airplanes, and by buying tickets at football
Representative
stadiums.
Bryant, I agree with you 100%. But let's be clear, no plane was ever purchased, okay? Just like traditional public make mistakes, so does charter schools. What I don't want is, would you agree that it is not fair to put every charter school in the same bucket, that they're all doing things wrong? We are serving thousands of children. So, Reverend Bryant,
I would agree they shouldn't be in the same bucket. The ones that don't do bad things, they'll be happy with this amendment. This amendment deals with the ones that do bad things. They can't take tax dollars and pay off those settlements.
Representative Bryant, my final question.
Pardon me?
My final question.
Okay.
How can we get yourself to fully appreciate the value of a charter school that are helping thousands of children across this great state? How can we get you to that place of understanding?
I fully appreciate the facts as they are. These schools are governed by private individuals who are on the board of an entity that happens to call itself nonprofit, but quite clearly has a lot of operating cash left over at the end of the year. So I'm just saying we're not going to let them use state dollars to pay off settlements they incur because of doing something wrong. The good charter schools, they don't have a single thing to worry about.
Representative
the ones
Bryant,
that are misbehaving, they're not going to like this.
Representative Bryant, can we work together to get on the same page so that we can ensure that traditional public and public charter schools are working to their best advantage to serving children? Can we do that?
Okay. We can get on this page. The good guys, they don't have a single thing to worry about. The abusers, they can't use state money to pay off legal settlements.
Thank you
The
for
gentleman's
letting
time
me
has
ask questions.
expired.